Welcome to episode 256 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent and Jason here. And this week, this is all about Ozzy.
All Ozzy, all the time.
Hell yeah. Ozzy's, unfortunately, not our guest.
I wish.
But yeah, we've got a great one here. Because actually, as you can tell from the title, this is our every album in a row thing that we do. And we did this Ozzy every album in a row almost. I looked it up. It was almost 3 years ago now. It was
Goddamn.
We're right here at the beginning of March, and this was mid-March of 2017. And we're bringing it back as a throwback because, as you all know, a week and a half ago, Ozzy's first new album in quite a while came out on February 21st.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about that and attach it to this where we talked about every other Ozzy album. Before we get into that, we need to let you know, of course, that we're sponsored by DEB Concerts and MedFarm. MedFarm is a dispensary in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. They're at 24683 East Highway 51. They're right there just east of Anita Road. You can't miss them. They've got a big selection, and they've got a doctor on site every Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. if you need to get a medical card. They've got all kinds of specials that are always going. If you follow them on Facebook at MedFarm, PHARM, or on Instagram at MedFarmOK, you can find out about all those. You can also find their website, medfarmok.com, or find all their products listed on leafly.com. If you tell them that you heard about them on Thunder Underground or mention our name, they'll give you 10% off your order. And on top of all that, their slogan is Cannabis with a Cause because 30% of their profits are going to build no-kill animal shelters. Very cool. So like we like to mention, you can get to this place that's between Broken Arrow and Coweta within probably 20 minutes of wherever you're at in the Tulsa area. So get over there and check them out. Since 30% of your profits are going to do a great thing, they've already got the land and a building, and it's getting set up right now. So we need more of no-kill ammo shelters around here and around everywhere pretty much, so glad they're doing that. Then, of course, we've got DEB Concerts, who keeps bringing in some kick-ass shows to Tulsa. They just recently brought in Buck Cherry. They brought in Last in Line this past year. Saxon, Beasto Blanco, Steelheart, Kix, Dokken, Sebastian Bach, Tom Kiefer. Ton of other great bands. Coming up, they've got Texas Hippie Coalition on April 20th, 4/20 to be exact, which makes a lot of sense.
Child and Sweatin' Bullets opening.
That's right. And Lynn Hernandez from KMOD will be hosting this show.
Okay.
So get out there and check that one out. You can buy tickets online. Go to debconcerts.com to find the ticket link. And, of course, you can see everything they got coming up as well. They might by now have a show announced at the BOK because that's coming up. They're supposed to have an announcement soon for a rock show at the BOK Center. Last year they did their first BOK show with Snoop Dogg and Nelly. Got their foot in the door there, so we got some rock and roll coming here in 2020. And then also, they booked the D&B processing stage, which is in the Roadhouse area out there at Rocklahoma. This year and last year. This year we've got Warrant, Bullet Boys, and Hurricane Alice doing the pre-party night. And then the other 3 nights we've got Lynch Mob, Liliac, and John Five and the Creatures as the headliners for that stage on those nights, or the other 3 nights. And then we've got all kinds of great bands on the bill. We've got some of our favorite local bands like Severmind. You've also got Travis Bond from Tulsa. Who else? From
Fist of Rage.
That's right, Fist of Rage, of course. So very glad they're there. And a lot of other great bands. So get on debconcerts.com or rocklahoma.com to find out all that. And of course, we'll be talking about that tons of times before it gets here in May. So more of that to come. Just jumping into this. If you're not familiar, you hadn't listened to one of our other episodes where it's every album in a row, we basically take an artist and then we listen to their entire discography, every one of their songs from the very first album to the most recent album, straight through. We leave out compilation albums, obviously, greatest hits, whatever. For the most part, we leave out live albums. A few times we've done it if it's something iconic like Kiss Alive or Alice in Chains Unplugged. And thinking back, we probably should have included Tribute. Because that's such a great, the Randy Rhoads album. I mean,
yeah,
maybe that's just
a special exception.
I mean, we should have, but we didn't, so whatever. I feel like there's like one other one that we did live on. But anyway, we just listen to the thing straight through, obviously on our own time, and then we come back together and we talk about just how the albums, flow, how an artist's discography changed, like, because a lot of people, especially someone like Ozzy, the sounds changed a lot throughout the years. Of course, he's had, at least on record, 4 different guitarists. I know he's had more, like Joe Holmes never recorded an album, even though he was with him for a long time. But,
that's right.
And then whenever we originally did all these on YouTube, just kind of as a bonus thing, and now we've like slowly been throwing them up on the podcast, just kind of like as a revisit thing.
Right.
And so in the past 3 years since we did this, of course, like we just mentioned, Ozzy has a new album, but other things have happened, whereas he had a full like world tour scheduled last year and then ended up having to cancel almost all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he's like, he rescheduled it and then he canceled it all again.
Yeah, for now, like that was just recently this year.
Yeah.
And in different reasons, last year it's like he hurt himself, got injured, and then this year, was the real, like the reason he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but I don't know if that was the reason.
I don't know.
If it's just he's having other health issues, I think he's just probably not strong enough to do this on a full-time basis, with as large scale as this tour was going to be.
Yeah.
When this album, I'm going to say something up front right here. When this album came out on February 21st, I thought that this album was going to come out, and on February 22nd, we were going to find out that Ozzy was dead. That was just some weird feeling I had. It was going to be like David Bowie.
Well, like a David Bowie thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because then you listen to the album on February 21st, and there's like a couple songs that are kind of ominous about dying and stuff, and I just thought, what if this is it? Like, he just holding on for this album.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the other thing playing into that is, recently after they announced that all this stuff, like the tour's canceled and all this, and there was a thing that said him and Sharon were going to Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone on Facebook, I think it was in the podcast group that we're in on Facebook, posted an article and said, check out this article from 2007. And it was an article, like an interview with Ozzy and Sharon. And it said that we made a pact that if one of us ever gets a life-threatening illness, we're going to go to Switzerland and to do, assisted suicide.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, that's like weird timing. We're going to Switzerland right after it announced that, he's not doing good and all this.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened. And then now a story just came out that said he wants to record another album here in the next month already.
Yeah.
Who knows if that'll happen?
Who knows? I don't know anything about any of that stuff. All I know is that I'm pretty sure he's done touring.
Yeah. He should be even if he wants to. Maybe he could do.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you
do shows here and there, but yeah, he shouldn't be doing full scale tours anymore.
You don't need to do anything for anybody,
right?
You're good.
Yeah,
So
I mean, if someone's like, oh, he's on my bucket list, well, that's your fucking problem. He's been playing shows my whole fucking life.
He's been playing shows since you were a kid. If you didn't go see him, then that's your goddamn problem.
I mean, I understand if you're 13 and you're just getting into it, that sucks and all, but I haven't seen him solo in a long ass time, but I've seen him like 8 times.
Yeah, same here. Here.
And I mean, we recently saw. I mean, the most recent time I guess I saw him was the Sabbath final tour 4 years ago.
Yeah,
or 3.5 years ago.
Election night. Yeah, and so it's done. I really think that his touring days are over. I think what just getting into the album. What a great way to go out.
Yeah.
And are we getting into it? I mean, that's what we're doing. So
yeah, we'll mention up front that this thing came together fairly quickly, from what I know.
Yeah,
and Andrew Watt has a huge hand in this.
Yes,
which the first thing to note is a lot of people, are crying and bitching that they want Zakk Wylde on the album, and I'm like,
nope,
as much as this guy's one of my favorite artists of all time when it comes to Zakk Wylde's solo stuff and Pride and Glory and a lot of Black Label Society, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't need another Black Rain.
No, we don't.
Okay. And
We
Andrew
don't.
White, you want someone fresh in there, I think. Because it's not like he's going to go get fucking Jakey Lee or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, or Gus G, I don't think. So it's like having something fresh, like a fresh take on things, and obviously someone who's a big fan. And even the whole band is fresh because you've got legendary people there, but Duff McKagan has never played with Ozzy, and Chad Smith has never played with Ozzy.
Right.
And Andrew White, brought them all together, and there's some guest spots on this as well. But so Andrew White plays most of the guitar on this.
Yeah.
And my takeaway is it's fucking good. So,
Well,
I mean, it could be better, but it's good.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're completely right on the Zakk Wylde thing, and I'm the same way. Don't get me wrong, I love Zakk Wylde, but it's like, where does Ozzy end and Black Label Society begin, and vice versa?
Right.
It was all sounding samey, to sound like a redneck, but it really was, and it was, kind of stale. And you're right, we don't need another Black Rain, or I don't know what album was Gus G on.
Scream.
Okay, that's right. So it's just like, I don't know. This was the first Ozzy album in a long, long time that I was anticipating. I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Because before I was like, it's just going to be another, a fucking Down to Earth or whatever the shit. And it's so weird because it's like anyone that grabs a hold of Ozzy, especially nowadays, is just going to try to do a Sabbath thing.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's kind of what I thought the problem was with Zakk. But, I can't bitch because like I said, anyone's going to try to do a Sabbath thing. And this has a lot of Sabbath shit in it. Just kind of maybe different, just maybe a little bit different guitar sound than Zakk or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just like you said, the freshness of it. There's just new blood on this CD. I don't know. I'm not going to go buy the record, but I would love to see the album credits. But then again, I know that, they always make it say Ozzy wrote everything. We know that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, you listen to him on that, what's that called? Ozzy Speaks, I think, with Billy Morrison. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's hard for me to listen to because I'm just like, I mean, at least he's honest, I'm trying to remember how Billy Morrison posed the question, but he just basically threw out the fact that he didn't do jack shit. He said he came in and wrote some harmonies, and I don't even know if he wrote the lyrics.
Yeah. I mean,
which he probably did some of them, I know.
But I just love that it's just so much more of an organic record than I've heard from Ozzy in a long time, and I love that. And it just, Andrew Watton gave it a little bit more honesty. It sounded a little pure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you had Slash on there, you had Elton John, you had some great riffs. Yeah, a lot of it's really derivative of Sabbath. Shit, there's that one song that starts with the bass drum.
Yeah.
And then, it says something in that weird, just like Iron Man. And then, the fucking Straight to Hell.
Where he's like, all right now.
All right now.
Like, what
yeah.
the fuck?
I mean, so it's totally Sabbathy. Don't get us wrong. But it just seems a little bit more, organic. And,
I want to say,
I think when you're dealing with musicians like Duff and Chad Smith, I mean, you're gonna get some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And that really made it a more of an intriguing listen for me.
Yeah. Well, to me, a lot of this reminds me of Osmosis.
I see that.
Like, as a whole. I mean, just like you said, there's the Sabbathy sounding stuff, but I mean, you could probably even say that about some stuff on Osmosis. You could say that about any Ozzy album, but like, I'm not saying it's as good as Osmosis. It's not anywhere near as good as Osmosis.
Yeah.
But it's,
right.
Overall, it just kind of reminds me of that because there's, you've got a few of the darker ballad kind of songs. And then you've just, as a whole, there's several songs that just have that same kind of feel that Osmosis had.
All my life, to me, I really like that song. To me, it's the most radio rock of today sounding song on the record.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the execution and who's on it that makes it just groove a little better.
Yeah.
Gives a little bit more weight.
Right.
Other than that, I don't say this about many albums, but I think the two singles, Straight to Hell and Under the Graveyard, are probably the best ones on the record. Best songs on the record. You know, I like Eat Me, I like Scary Little Green Men, but I like, you know, the two singles better.
Obviously with Sabbath, you always, I mean, the bass is always obvious.
Yeah.
Because of Geezer. But
Yep.
throughout Ozzy's, you know, just thinking off the top of my head, throughout Ozzy's discography, since I hadn't listened to it straight through in, I guess, 3 years, it's, you know, there's always points where you think of bass, like with No More Tears and stuff like that, but it's like not as like in the forefront as I think it is on this album.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, Andrew Watt did that because it's a notable bass player.
Well,
But
and it's also not just a notable bass player, but it's Duff who
Yeah.
has a very distinct style of playing.
yeah,
You know, he is not just, you know, a mimic the guitar player. He's a very Gene Simmons or a Free kind of bass player. The band Free.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of does his own thing and he walks up and he walks down and he finds different voices. And to me, that was all over the record. And I really enjoyed that part of it.
again, you hear that in like Scary Little Green Men where it's got the like bass runs there in the middle.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
of course, like at the beginning of It's a Raid, you know, it's like all the, just that distorted bass.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of,
You know, I really love, you know, during Straight to Hell, when it's like, dun 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 dun, and then you hear him go, doodle 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 doodle. I mean, just those little things. I sound like an idiot singing it out, but I don't care. I mean, it's just, it's really smart, and it's really fun to listen to.
yeah. My favorite song on the album is Ordinary Man with Elton John. I think
Really?
I think it's the best, just the best song as a song. I mean, I mean, that's, I guess, putting that two different things. I love it, and I think it's the best song, but like you said, I don't know, Scary Little Green Men probably jumped out to me as probably my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've seen, you know, when people are writing about it, people are like, you know, fuck Post Malone and this and that. I love It's a Raid.
Yeah, it's, you know, he's singing, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's not, yeah.
I mean, the other song...
Well, and I've always said, you know, that guy has got a voice. He's got talent.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like a fucking dipshit. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But he's not a rapper. That guy can sing. He sings.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like a lot of people, anyone in that guy's position, you know, he's like a huge star now in another genre, but
Mhm.
like, he doesn't need, even someone as big as Ozzy, he doesn't need that cosign or whatever you want to call it. He would do something like this because he wants to. I mean, he's noted as being a metal fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he even did metal at one point before he started.
I
If I remember reading that at one point. Anyway, so it's like, it's not something that's just being done to try to like push an album or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the other song, Take What You Want, that was released, I think, as a Post Malone single, I don't like that one at all. It's just, because
I stopped after.
It uses a lot of it's the Post Malone auto-tune
fuck
pop
all that.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Whatever. But It's a Raid is a great, I mean, it's fucking heavy and fast, and it's, you know, it's like I said, the Duff part of it and all this, you know, and there's Slash plays on, I think, 3 songs I remember reading. And so it's just, it doesn't list it on the thing. Like you said, we need to see the album credits. But, so I mean, as a whole, I think the album, it lived up to, I think, what we hoped, you know, because we talked about how we were excited about it for the first time in a long time. And like I said, it's nowhere near my favorite Ozzy album. It's not even, you know, top 5 or anything like that, but it's better than, I like it better than Scream. I like it better than Down to Earth. I like it better than, basically I like it better than everything since Osmosis.
Right?
So.
Yeah, like I said, it's the one I've anticipated the most in many, many, many years.
Yeah. So with all that being said, now we're going to go backwards, I guess. Could have put this after, huh? No.
Oh, well.
But it's fresh, so we wanted to talk about it first.
That's right.
Since it wasn't a part of the original deal. So now you're going to get us talking about every other Ozzy album from the beginning of Blizzard of Oz to the end of Scream. So
exactly.
Let's get into that now. Here's our every album in a row Ozzy Osbourne from March of 2017. a solo artist,
That's right.
so to speak. Listen to every album in a row, like the title states. The whole studio catalog from the first song of the first album to the last song of the most recent album. Of course, we don't do compilation albums, greatest hits, live albums, unless it's a compilation of unreleased material.
Yeah, I mean, there was no...
Or cover albums.
Yeah, there was no Just Say Ozzy or Live and Loud on this one.
Yeah, or tribute.
Tribute, yeah, exactly.
Or Live at Budokan. Man, he's got a lot of live albums.
That's right. Fuck, I forgot about that one. Well, we did the cover album though, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but we'll get into that later. I don't give a shit.
Right. Yeah, we do cover albums. Like I said, if it's new music, whether it's covers or not, as long as it's not a compilation album or a live album,
an official release, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as it's a major label release, because we're going to be doing Pantera next, and that's a good thing to throw in the rules. You know, they had 4 albums before Cowboys from Hell came out, which a lot of people talk about. And, you know, I had 2 of them, but obviously we're starting with the album that is considered their major label debut, that kind of thing, when we do these.
But even some big acts today aren't on major labels, so...
True, yeah. I guess it's a different precedent these days.
Yeah, I know.
But we probably won't be doing this for big acts these days.
Yeah, true. I'm getting picky. Sorry.
Right. Ozzy Osbourne, like I said.
Yeah.
He has 12 albums, I believe, if I counted right. We've got 120 songs here that we went through. Started with I Don't Know. How do you want to begin?
Well, you know, this album is classic. This album is a blueprint. This album is, it's an example for any kind of hard rock and heavy metal where this is where you want to go. I mean, there's 2 songs that weren't really that popular on this album.
Right.
No Bone Movies and Steal Away the Night. Everything else is always on the radio. I mean, it's just, Randy Rhoads helped that immensely. I mean, something happened, you know, after Ozzy left Sabbath, you know, Blizzard of Oz, and they caught lightning in a bottle. And I mean, this is one of those albums like Appetite for Destruction or, you know, fucking Led Zeppelin 4 or something where, I mean, it's classic and it's superb all the way through.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. Like, what do you think happened between leaving Sabbath and doing this? Because it wasn't that long of a time period before this came out to be doing something that's not totally different at all. It's still in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
But it's noticeably different.
Well,
I mean, I guess Never Say Die, the last Sabbath album, you know, kind of
started
having that sound. But you always heard that Tony Iommi was more kind of in charge of that stuff. So
yeah. Well, I mean, this is just my opinion. I mean, I'm just one guy. I don't know. What do I know? But if you're asking me, I'll tell you that it's the players. It really is.
Right.
You know, it's Randy Rhoads. So, you know, Bob Daisley, those kind of guys writing. And I mean, it's just, you know, Sharon and Ozzy put together one hell of a team. I mean, they really did. And I think that without, excuse me, without that combination they came up with, I don't think that the first 2 albums would be as revered as they are now. And, you know, yes, those lineups changed, you know, all over the place, but you had Randy Rhoads, and it was just, it was on fire. It really was.
Yeah.
It's something that you can't match. You'll never be able to match.
Right.
It's like magic, as corny as that sounds. That's my answer.
Well, I mean, this album, song-wise, like you said, has all these classic songs, but it has a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'll look at like D, for example, you know, it's just like this beautiful interlude from Randy Rhoads. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, you know, an epic ballad, you know, one of the all-time huge ballads with Goodbye to Romance.
Yeah.
And Crazy Train, one of the biggest rock songs of all time. Mr. Crowley, which harkened back to the Sabbath sound almost, you know, and Suicide Solution, which is amazing. And you mentioned Still Away Tonight, and when I listened to this, it had been a while since I listened to this album.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I listened to it a billion times when I was younger. I kind of forgot how much I liked that song as well. Just because, like you said, if you hadn't listened to that album in a long time, you probably hadn't heard that song. But the whole, if we're going to just like go into Diary, because it's kind of along the same lines with the same lineup, that album too, when you put these two together, it's like those first two albums, it's just like listening to the classic rock station.
It really is.
Any town in America.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few songs as well on Diary that aren't on the radio as much, but still, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll is underrated as hell, and they play that on Sirius all the time.
Yeah. But Over the Mountain, Flying High Again, Jesus. Yeah. I mean, just more radio staples.
Yeah.
And rightly so.
Right.
And
listen to this. I forgot how much I love the song Tonight.
Yeah.
I love that more than Goodbye Romance.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the title track is one of his all-time best songs, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and if, we're on that, we have to talk about Believer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a badass song. Once again, Randy Rhoads just blows it out of the water, but that's one of the coolest fucking bass lines in rock history.
Yeah.
And it's simple. It's so simple. Anyone could play it, but it's so effective. I could teach you how to play it in 2 minutes. You'd be playing it. That's that easy to play, but it's so memorable and so, You're
talking about the Bob Daisley version or the Rob Trio version?
Jesus Christ! You had to get that in there. But you know what? We're talking about these albums. That's a conversation we can have.
Yeah.
But they went back to the old recordings though. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they did after a few years.
That's how the story goes. Yeah.
Which was kind of shitty, but everybody knows that. That's not anything we need to bring up.
Yep. And if you remember, I think Chris Jericho asked Robert Trujillo on his podcast about that.
Right.
And Rob Trujillo was like, they were my bosses. They told me to do this. It's Ozzy. What am I going to say? No? And I get that. I totally do. Right. I don't blame him for it, but I'm still glad they went back to the old recordings,
Yeah. Yeah, these two albums together, could pretty much define his whole career, in my opinion.
You're very right.
We're going to get, of course, later to some more huge stuff, but if this is all he ever did and retired, that would hold up against many bands that have 10 albums.
Yeah.
But the other thing, you didn't need to do this. You didn't need to listen to 120 Ozzy songs to remember that he's always had an amazing guitarist.
Exactly.
And
no matter what we're talking about.
Yeah, no matter what era it was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, whenever Randy Rhoads left, the next guy up was, well, at least for what we're doing, was Jakey Lee.
Yeah.
Because Brad Gillis was there. Brad Gillis is on Just Say Ozzy, right?
Yes.
And...
No, Speak of the Devil.
Yeah, Speak of the Devil, sorry. And that's the only other recorded guitarist, I think, besides the ones on these studio albums.
I would like to just say, though, Brad Gillis, that's a great album. Brad Gillis is amazing.
Yeah.
We got to meet Brad Gillis, and he was a pretty nice guy.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. But that was a live record, so that's not on here.
Right. Yeah, and we had to skip, tribute as well.
Yeah.
Of course.
Which sucks, but you have to do it if we're going by our rules.
Yeah, it's kind of revered as a monumental album, in Ozzy's career. And, even when you think of live rock albums, that's one of the ones people always bring up.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not talking about that because we didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
But the next studio album up is Bark at the Moon, and that's whenever Jakey Lee showed up.
Yes.
And the first thing you notice whenever Bark at the Moon starts, it still sounds like Ozzy, but there's a noticeable difference. And maybe that's just because he's different than Randy Rhoads.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the whole album, that's that's the first time you notice a change, which you're gonna when there's different players, of course. But that's another one I hadn't listened to in quite a while, straight through.
besides obviously Bark at the Moon, you had Rock and Roll Rebel that was a huge hit. But
Yeah.
Slow Down jumped out at me as being really cool.
Yep.
Just because I hadn't heard that in years. But I don't know, what's your take on this?
I've got fond memories of this album. I'd always, one thing when I was a kid, they had remastered or re-released or whatever all these albums, and they had kind of the same kind of artwork. You remember that?
But it was like in a little box.
Yes, exactly.
And it had Ozzy written down the side.
Yes, and each album had a different color, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
I still think shit like that is cool, but anyways.
That's actually, not to cut you off, but that's the first time that I owned this album was when because that came out when we were like teenagers.
Yes, exactly. And
that's the first time I bought Bark at the Moon.
And that was mine as well. And I had heard Bark at the Moon and So Tired and stuff like that, but I hadn't really delved into that album. And I was like, well, it's not going to be Randy. I don't know, and our friend Eric Reese always talked about Jake E. Lee and stuff. Right. And I really fell in love with this album way more than I thought I would. I mean, everything, You're No Different. I mean, Now You See It, Now You Don't. Like you said, Slow Down. I really love Waiting for Darkness. I mean, it's classic. And you bring up a great point, how it sounds like Ozzy, but it's different because it's Jake E. Lee. And it's funny how, you've got each album, it seems like after this, you've got different guys, different writers, different whatever the fuck. Yeah. But it still sounds like Ozzy, the music. So,
but I think you do notice with each album a
little
bit different sound. But yeah, it still sounds like Ozzy.
Definitely, because we can get into, after Bark at the Moon, we can get into Ultimate Sin, which is still Jake E. Lee, but I'd go my whole life without listening to this record ever again. And this is an argument I've always had with, like I said, our buddy Eric Reese, who loves this record.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Seriously?
I mean, it's got a couple of good moments, but it just, skip. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a dick, but I don't know. I could never get into this record.
Well, just like Bark at the Moon, I got it on that remastered thing as well when we were kids.
Same here.
And I listened to it some, but admittedly, I never listened to it as much as the 3 albums before it or, the stuff that came after it. But listening to it, and I always, remember that's the album that sounded like Ozzy was trying to cash in on the 80s.
Yeah.
But, again, listening to it this time, I really dug it. And I mean, I've always loved Shot in the Dark because it's so bombastically 80s with those, with those.
Well, it is. I'll give you that.
With those keyboards and everything. And it's just like, it's basically the most 80s sounding thing you've ever had.
Yeah,
but there's
true.
other stuff on there like, Killer of Giants and Fool Like You, which I think are both great songs.
I think for me, if there's any song that's worth saving on that record, it's the title track.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good tune. Other than that, it just kind of for me, but whatever.
Well, before we leave the Jake E. Lee era, we should mention we saw him the year before last. He's on, he's kind of back now.
Yeah. Red Dragon Cartel.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with the fact, he has a band called Red Dragon Cartel. And when he plays live, of course, he plays these Red Dragon Cartel songs, but he also plays several of the songs from these 2 albums, as well as Badland songs, which is a phenomenal set list.
Yes.
If you ever get the chance to see it. And I remember from the Ultimate Sin, I think he just played the Ultimate Sin. That was the only song. So that's good for you. But I saw some set lists where he played Secret Loser as well, I think.
Yeah.
In some
I've heard he was playing that. Just a side note on that show, that was Mudlahoma at Rocklahoma when it was just mud everywhere.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't prepared. I didn't, I had a dinky pair of tennis shoes and they were playing the second stage and that whole field was just a huge pond of mud. So I stayed way, 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 way back in the concrete and just watched it. And I don't really remember a lot of it because I was so far away. I think you got up there though, didn't you?
Yeah, I got clear up to the front. Just a couple people in front of me.
You son of a bitch.
But yeah, so check out Red Dragon Cartel if you haven't.
Oh yeah,
that album's great.
That album is super fucking great.
And hopefully he does another one soon. I know he had a lot of issues with singers coming and going.
Personnel, yeah.
Well, then we go into what's next? No Rest
for the Wicked. Which, I mean, it's Zakk Wylde's first album. I think everything was just blown wide the fuck open on this record. I smile from ear to ear when I hear this. This is my favorite Ozzy record with Zakk on it. I mean, and that's something to say because No More Tears is phenomenal. But, I mean, this record is just raw, just like I said, it's just busted wide open. Riffs and just, it's fun and it's just balls out. I mean, it is, you can definitely tell there's a 20-year-old kid playing fucking guitar on this record.
Yeah,
it is so fucking great. And I mean, it feels like Ozzy is invigorated, excuse me. I mean, it just feels like a whole new thing. You know, I mean, it's one of my favorite records of all time.
Wow. Well, see, the thing I noticed too, listening to this right after Ultimate Sin, this still had that kind of 80s sound and vibe going on, but it had a lot more punch.
Yeah.
Which, you know, obviously probably came from Zakk, I guess, but I can't imagine that Zakk had any more leeway than Jakey Lee had that early in his career. Later on, I know they let Zakk have free reign, but
yeah, I know it's crazy, isn't it?
It's just weird how there's just something about this album that just, even though it has that 80s feel, it just pops way more than Ultimate Sin does.
Yeah. This album, I hate to make a comparison like this because it's kind of stupid and corny, but if this album was a vehicle, it'd be one of those big trucks with the fake balls hanging underneath it by the trailer hitch. I mean, fucking, I'm not kidding you.
It wouldn't have fake balls, there'd be real balls.
Well, you know what I mean. That's just
I know what
how
you're saying.
bad. Yeah, it's all real balls, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it doesn't let up.
Yeah.
It's so fucking cool.
Yeah, and
I mean, Bloodbath in Paradise, Charlie Manson, Devil's Daughter, fuck, man, Demon Alcohol.
Yeah.
I couldn't even say Tattoo Dancer because I got sidetracked with Demon Alcohol.
Yeah.
Fucking A. I mean, it's just so good.
Yeah, Demon Alcohol is probably my favorite song on this album, but then Breaking All the Rules, Fire in the Sky, and this is another one that since I hadn't listened to it in a while, when I heard Hero, that jumped out at me and I was like, holy shit, I just completely forgot this song existed in my head. And when I heard it, like, I think I told you already, but whenever I finished this whole thing, finished the last song, I went back and immediately listened to Hero and Tonight again.
Yeah.
You know, just because when I heard him earlier, I'm like, man, I want to hear this, but I'm not going to stop listening to everything in a row just to play another song 2 times in a row, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's an amazing introduction to the world of Zakk Wylde.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, you know, next we have, I mean, Jesus.
This is where everything kind of...
This is where it gets crazy.
Changes, I think.
This is...
Like, I mean, this is the other thing. It's like, all these albums that came before it, like, what happened here with No More Tears? Like, something's changed where it just sounds bigger. It sounds fuller. And I don't... Maybe that's just production. I don't know. Just everything about it just sounds huge.
Yeah, there's, you know, the production team was in place. Zakk Wylde was writing. You had Lemmy wrote a couple songs.
Right.
And it was just one of those, you've got to think Ozzy is so fortunate. Okay. He's had, you know, he struck gold with Black Sabbath. Okay. He struck gold with Randy Rhoads and what was going on there. You know, and then he fucking did it all over again with Zakk Wylde in that era. Yeah. Because that blew it all up again.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, we all thought, you know, oh, he's one of those older classic rock guys until No More Tears came out, and he's just all over the place, and he's number one, and just all over it again.
Yeah.
And to do that 3 times, Jesus Christ, man! No, most people don't even get to do it once.
Right.
So, I mean, there's something going on there. No More Tears is like one of those albums in the early 90s that, to take a line from Wayne's World, if you lived in the suburbs, you were issued these albums. I mean, No More Tears, the Black Album, Vulgar Display of Power.
Use Your Illusions.
Use Your Illusions. I mean, really. And then you could even, I mean, it's just, it's insane. Everybody was ate up with this record. Everybody had this record,
Yeah, it's just, I was 14 when this came out, and this album was one of those albums, kind of alluding to what you just said, that just completely resonated with me as a kid.
Definitely.
And it's like, so much so that I can't say that there's another Ozzy album that I like better than it, that I probably should say that if I really thought about it, but it's just, it resonates with me so much from my youth that I just think that's my favorite Ozzy album.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who are the same way with Blizzard because they're older, but that's just that album for me. And, whenever we were kids, like you said, he was that classic rock dude. I knew the big Sabbath songs. I knew Crazy Train, the obvious, radio hits that you would hear on the radio whenever I was really starting to get into music. And then that's whenever this came out of nowhere. And it went from just being one of those classic rock dudes to being, holy shit, this is one of my favorite bands in the world.
Exactly. And
that lineup.
In that lineup, Randy Castillo, Mike Inez, and Zakk Wylde.
Yeah. That's one of the best bands ever assembled.
I know. One of the things I thought was crazy is we were in intermediate high school. It was 9th and 10th grade, and it was the day after the concert. He'd come to Tulsa. I didn't get to go.
Oh, out at the racetrack?
Yeah, but what I thought was crazy was at school the next day, everybody had Ozzy shirts on. But one girl had a Zakk Wylde shirt on. And that was the first time I'd ever saw, Ozzy's sideman have his own t-shirt.
So they were selling them there?
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, she had a Zakk Wylde shirt on.
Okay.
And I was just like, wow. I mean, that's how you know this is big, is not only is he getting props, but so is Zakk Wylde. And that's when I knew. I was like, wow, that's crazy. I just really noticed that kind of difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't even really mention songs. Mr. Tinker Train kicks this thing off. And it's hard to really say because there's so much classic, amazing Ozzy stuff before this. But I think that's my favorite Ozzy song.
Really?
It's, Ozzy's one of those guys that I could say 10 songs are tied for number one, probably. But that's definitely in the running, if not the number one song.
Yeah.
But then you just go down the list, and I love every song.
I Don't Want to Change the World is just, that's where it's at for me in the Zakk era.
And then even the live version on Live and Loud is just unbelievable.
Yep.
And when you see it live was unbelievable. Then, of course, No More Tears, when you get to that breakdown, that solo, that's just one of the... It's not even... There's nothing like hugely technical about it when you look at like stuff Zakk had done on other albums. It's not crazy, fast, insane. It's just one of the best solos ever, in my opinion. Just because
it is.
Of that,
it really is.
That slow build up to it, and then just Zakk Wylde makes it what it is.
I mean, Road to Nowhere, what an anthem.
Yeah.
You felt like you could take on the world when you heard that song.
Yeah.
Hellraiser and Mama, I'm Coming Home. Lemmy was throwing his fucking shit in there.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It was just, you can't, it was another, you can't duplicate it. Just like the first two records.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it was, well, like any Ozzy album, I could say this about everyone. It's been a while since I think I've listened to any Ozzy album straight through. But I'd listened to this probably more recently than others, but still, it was just a joy going through this.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was amazing listening to it.
And then we had Party with the Animals and Don't Blame Me, which were the unreleased
which I don't
tracks
never really got into until we did all this.
I think I had listened to them when they released that thing and then heard their release thing a while back. But Well, Osmosis was next. And
Yes.
That's where I know you hear some people starting to bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I absolutely love this album.
Me too. I love this record. I thought it was fucking phenomenal. And I will say that it was the last great Ozzy record.
Yeah.
It really was. Let's just say it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to these other ones here in a minute, but and I like the other ones more than I remember liking them, listening to them now. But yeah, this is the last one that's just like, you could just throw on any time and just let it go.
Yeah.
And we talk about listening to every album in a row and like how stuff flows from one album to the next, and if it, could be on, Carry On, and Perry Mason sounds like a song that could have just been on No More Tears.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the best songs on the record.
Yeah. And it's that, one of the things, I noticed this when it came out, what was this, 95 or 96? 96, I think.
Yeah.
We were 19 at that point. And it jumped out to me at how ballad heavy this thing was.
Yeah.
And it's still to this day, it always makes me wonder what the point of that was. But I like every song, so I don't really care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But it was just kind of odd, I thought, at the time that, in 96, it wasn't like, hey, ballads are huge on the radio, let's cash in on it.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the point. Maybe it was like, let's do something different. And I mean, hey, it worked because See You on the Other Side was huge on the radio in an era where heavy music wasn't huge.
Yeah.
Perry Mason as
Maybe
well.
that was the thing. They knew that heavy music wasn't huge, so let's soften it up a little bit.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
And then in the middle of the song, we'll throw in a heavy bridge and put a solo over it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But See You on the Side was great. I Just Want You was pretty cool.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about the ballads, I think See You on the Other Side was a little better than I Just Want You, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, before we go further, the fourth track is called Thunder Underground.
That's right.
Which is where, obviously, the name of this thing came from.
That's where we got our name for our fanzine, podcast, whatever.
Yeah. We started this as a fanzine back in 96, and I don't remember if it was you or me came up with the idea we should call it Thunder Underground because that's a cool Ozzy song and it sounds cool.
Yep.
And then once we started doing this, we stuck with the name, and here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say that you're talking about ballads. Old L.A. Tonight is, I think, one of the best fucking. It sounds so good, and it's so like victorious and all that shit. I really love that song.
Yeah,
I would love to learn how to play that and all that kind of corny shit. I love that song.
Yeah, it's it's easily one of his best ballads.
Yeah.
And just, phenomenal. And the other thing with Old L.A. Tonight, I think, is it's the first glimpse that you get.
Hold on. I'm drinking all the beer and you're drinking water. How are you doing this?
I don't know.
Jesus. Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's the first glimpse that you get of Zach's solo kind of, that sound that you heard, on Book of Shadows.
Yeah.
And then later on in some Black Label stuff.
Yeah.
But the solo to that, and just like the guitar even before the solo, just has that real kind of soulful sound that he would use on his ballads later on. So that was kind of cool to see that. But yeah, I put that up there at the top list of all this stuff.
Definitely. And then after that you get into those bonus tracks that were B-sides, like Whole World's Fallen Down.
Yeah.
Which I think is better than anything on Osmosis. You
think it's better than everything that's on the album?
I always thought,
Right.
you had those two B-sides that came out, which was not, we couldn't find other than a YouTube thing, was that song called Living with the Enemy, which I loved. I thought that could have been on No More Tears. And
then there was that song, Amy.
Yeah, and that's on here.
Yeah.
And so you had those three songs. I thought Whole World's Fallen Down and Living with the Enemy were cooler than anything on Osmosis. I think they were more traditional Ozzy songs where Osmosis, if it wasn't a ballad, it tried to be real heavy and down-tuned and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And what's funny about Amy is that's just another kind of your ballad type kind of things is when I got done listening to all these Ozzy songs, all the records, that's the one that for some fucking reason that stuck in my head for a day.
Seriously?
I was singing that stupid song all day long. Which is weird. Don't ask me how, but that's what happened.
Right? Well, hey, it's better than Changes with Kelly Osbourne.
That ain't no shit. Jesus fuck, man. Don't get me started on that.
Right? Hey, we could have listened to Changes because it was a huge radio single.
So, what's next, Trent? Down to Earth?
Yeah. Well, Down to Earth came out a few years later. Was that 99 or no? That was like 2000 or 2001. That was quite a while later. Zach's still here. And this one, what jumped out at me was it was way more streamlined in the sound. Mm-hmm. Just straight across, which is sometimes a bad thing. Which I didn't dislike this at all, but it wasn't bland, but it didn't have near as much to it as every album before it had. Which look on your face makes me think that you fucking hate it or something.
I'm just gonna. I'd rather listen to Chinese Democracy than any album after Osmosis that Ozzy did. I'm serious. I don't like these records. Sorry. They don't suck. I mean, 2 of them's got Zakk Wylde on it, so that's cool. But if I remember correctly, it seems like I read an interview somewhere, and this has been a long time ago. And, I've killed a ton of brain cells since then. Maybe I'm making this up. I don't know. But it seems like I remember, Zakk Wylde saying that, these albums he was really held back on. They wanted to hold back the pings and the crazy solos and stuff. And and you can tell, there's not a lot of memorable stuff with these albums. Sorry.
Well, what I remember something like that too, but I thought I remembered that he had left at this point because he was doing, Black Label, and Joe Holmes was there during that period, and then they had wrote all this stuff, and then they brought him back in to do Down to Earth, but everything was written, and I think the only thing he even wrote probably were his solos.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing, and that's kind of an obvious notice that I don't know who wrote it with Ozzy or for Ozzy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as good as
Well, I looked up a lot of the writing credits, and I can't. But I'm not going to comment because I can't remember now over the 3 newer albums how they were all spread out. So I don't know. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut on that one. I'm going to keep my mouth shut on the rest of it, really, because there's nothing that really stands out to me. I hate to say it like that, but I got to be honest.
Yeah, I was, worried about this when we were listening to this.
Yeah.
Once it got to Down to Earth, I'm like, man, I'm going to hate everything. Not hate it, but I'm just like, I remember I listened to all these albums when they came out. I got them all.
Yeah, me too, because we're huge fans.
Yeah. And I remember Down to Earth's probably the one I listened to the most after I got it of the 3, just because it was still way back then.
Yeah.
And, with Black Rain and
Scream.
Yeah, Scream. I listened to them a few times, and that was just kind of it. But so I actually enjoyed Black Rain and Scream more than I enjoyed Down to Earth. But
I can see that in a way.
Maybe the main thing is because they're fresher to me because I listen to them a lot less. But we can't go Down to Earth. We can't go to Black Rain without mentioning Undercover because we listened to it.
I know. I don't want to mention it, but we have to, I guess.
Yeah, I love Ozzy, and obviously we're sitting here doing this, but man, that was hard to fucking get through.
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't Saint Anger hard, but it was close because it's like,
oh fuck! I don't ever want to hear his cover of "Sympathy for the Devil" ever again.
Right?
And I'm sorry,
for what it's worth. God.
Well, fuck any of them. And I'm sorry, Jerry Cantrell. He played on this album, and I love Jerry Cantrell, and he's probably just doing what he got hired to do.
Right.
But fuck, man.
Yeah.
This album's a fucking beer coaster.
Yeah, there's just so many songs I'm hearing Ozzy singing. I'm like, he shouldn't be singing this. This doesn't even make sense.
Or it's something that was just like, it sounded like they phoned it in.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's my guess.
Let's do a half-ass cover of this or that, or it's like.
I mean, it was probably one of those things.
Dude.
They probably went in and knocked it out in a short period of time just to put out a product, you know, because obviously after No More Tears, everything started getting way spaced out, you know. So I bet it was just here. Let's capitalize on the success of Ozfest.
Yeah. Who needs to hear Ozzy doing a cover of "Sunshine of Your Love"?
No. I want to hear Living Colour do a cover of that. That's it.
That's right.
Which is an amazing cover.
It was an amazing cover.
But yeah, so Undercover had Jerry Cantrell. But like you said, that sucks. That's the only thing he was on. Black Rain, we got Zach back. And it's obvious we got Zach back because this should not be called Black Rain. It should be called Black Label Society Rain.
See?
Seriously, you know, look, it's better than I remembered it being, like I said. And the songs, you know, 11 Silver and Civilize the Universe and Here for You, the ballad, you know, all kind of jumped out at me as being cool.
Countdown's Begun maybe was cool. I don't know. Fuck, man.
I wrote that down because that's the one that sounds most like Black Label.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, fuck me. You know what? I gotta pee. Can we just cut this off now? Fuck these albums. We're gonna get hate mail.
Look, we're trying to discuss this like we're supposed to. Every album.
I know.
It's not most of the albums, and the ones you don't like, you
I
skip.
know. I'm a dick.
Yes. But yeah, seriously, Black Rain, you can totally tell it's another one that Zach probably came in, and he's in the Black Label vein, and so just everything sounded like that. I don't know if he wrote some of this stuff or not. But my guess is he might have, since it sounds like that. But also, it's just the way he's playing, too. But A Scream's the final one. And the main thing about this one is it's way too fucking long. Not just...
Yeah. Dude, I was like, God damn, how many fucking songs are on this?
Not just because, you know, you might say that because you don't like it at all. But I'm just saying, yeah, I got 14 or 16 songs or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this could have been like 10 or 11 songs and it would have came off better.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I noticed was, I mean, it flows well out of Black Rain, but of course it sounds a little different because this is the first one with Gus G.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he comes from, you know, a heavier side of music. And this, you can tell that on this album too, because it's probably Ozzy's heaviest album sound-wise, you know, from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that's kind of the thing that jumped out at me the most is it was just, you know, at this point, what was it, 2010 or 11, it's probably a thing of like Sharon's like, you know, heavy metal's back, you know, kind of, so we need to make this heavy as fuck, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my
guess.
And,
you know, Sharon Osbourne has her finger on the pulse of heavy metal, doesn't she?
Oh, I'm sure she does. Yeah. If you throw eggs or water balloons, whatever it was at Iron Maiden, you got your finger on the pulse.
You damn right.
But no, I mean, overall, besides the cover album, this was a great experience for me. Just because it had been so long since I
heard it. I agree. I enjoyed it. And it was just kind of cool to see, you know, where he's gotten to. And, you know, we're critical on later albums. Fuck us. He's been doing it since the 60s. What do we know? More power to him. But it's just interesting to see that progression.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Like, overall, I mean, you already kind of mentioned No Rest for the Wicked was your favorite Zach album, at least. Like, what's your favorite, can you say what your favorite album is overall, besides Blizzard? Or, I was going to say besides Blizzard or No More Tears, because I assume those are the two that most people pick, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so, are you saying take
those two out?
No Rest for the Wicked.
Okay.
Easy. No Rest for the Wicked.
I think mine's Diary of Madman.
Okay.
That's probably easy as well, just because it's Randy. But if, besides, I mean, we mentioned Old LA Tonight, how much we love it, but what is your favorite Ozzy ballad, or two or three? Because there's a shitload of them.
Old LA Tonight, Goodbye to Romance, because that's just... It's maybe it's common, but I don't care. It's just classic, and it's gold. It's gold. you know. Could Road to Nowhere be a ballad? I don't know. That's kind of more like
It's a mid-tempo rock.
Mid-tempo rock. Jerry Miller, are you out there? Are you hearing this? She'd love that.
Yeah.
But, maybe that could work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll say that.
I love Goodbye to Romance, but I heard it so many times that I like some of these songs better, like Old LA Tonight and Tonight, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Those two songs. And then probably third, I would say, it's the same thing as Goodbye to Romance, but Mama, I'm Coming Home, just because it's so huge. And like I said, that album is what resonated with me. So that's kind of ingrained in me, even though now, if it came on the radio, a lot of times I might change it.
Yeah.
But this time when I listened to it, since I had to, it was really fucking cool to hear it again because it's been quite a while.
Exactly.
And the last thing I want to ask you is overall, like, you listen to all these things in a row. And I mean, what all these guys sound like, but is there anything that jumps out, as major similarities between any of these guys? Like Zach, I mean, from like Randy to Jake to Zach to basically Gus G, I guess, because nobody else was on record. But
top of their game, really. I mean, I don't know what it is about Ozzy, but he's got the Midas touch when it comes to guitar players.
Yeah.
And, they're all very different, but they're all insane at what they do. They're amazing at what they do.
Yeah.
There's never been a time where you've been like, Ozzy fucked up on that one.
Right.
And, even Joe Holmes was, I think, a great guitar player. He was a student of Randy Rhoads. It would have been cool to see, an album with him. So, I mean, he always had an act for virtuosos. Whether it was him or Sharon or whoever the fuck, I don't know. But they know a good guitar player when they see one.
So why wasn't he on Down to Earth? Do you remember?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I know that if you go back there, I know there's a whole Eddie Trunk podcast with Joe Holmes on it.
I listened to it and I forgot.
And I can't fucking, I'm the same way. I can't remember any of it, so.
Right.
There you go.
But yeah, obviously the differences jump out at times, but the similarity, I just kind of wondered if anyone notices, as a guitarist, the similarities in these guys. But,
yeah. Well, I'm a slight guitarist. Ask somebody that's really good, and they might have a better answer.
Yeah. We should ask Eric Reese, since he's a huge Jakey Lee fan,
yes,
and he's also a huge Randy Rhoads and Zach Wilde fan.
That's right. That's right.
There you go. Every album in a row, Ozzy Osbourne. I'll be interested to hear that back because I haven't listened to it in 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. So you just heard all that, and then like we talked about at the beginning, the new album came out on February 21st, so check all that out if you hadn't. It's a solid effort, and it'd be cool if he does do another one like you said here this year. So look forward to seeing if that happens. If you like this kind of thing where we're just going deep dive into an artist's discography, we had CJ from Grind on here to do it for Kiss, which that was a long haul, and that was a great one.
Yeah.
Another one that was a huge long haul was Megadeth. We also did Stone Temple Pilots with Brandon from Driver.
That's right.
And then we did Alice in Chains. We've done Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Pantera. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Obviously the first one we ever did this on was Metallica.
Right.
So just dig back through there, check all those out. A lot of them are now on the podcast, and there's also several that have not been on the podcast that are on YouTube. So go to YouTube at Ethan Underground, subscribe. We've got a lot of other stuff besides that, like videos and reviews, all that great stuff. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, EthanUnderground.com. You can find all the links for all that. You can listen to all our back episodes. We've had on Gene Simmons from Kiss, guys from Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, Typo Negative, Seven Dust, Saxon, Warrant, Tesla. Huge ass long list, so just dig through there. Check out all those past episodes on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Music, and most everywhere you can hear a podcast. And yeah, check out Ozzy's new album, and thanks again to Med Farm and DB Concerts. Until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.